All right, we want to bring in now Alireza Jafarzadeh, Deputy Director, National Council of Resistance of Iran. And Alireza, thank you for getting up. I was looking at Khamenei, the Ayatollah's Twitter, and not surprisingly, he doesn't seem to approve of this sort of thing. We're getting more reaction from the world leaders out there. But let me ask you, Alireza, what message might this operation in Venezuela send to the Ayatollah in Iran?
Well, Griff, I think today is a very sad day for the Ayatollahs ruling Iran because leader Khamenei has lost his biggest ally in the Western Hemisphere, who, by the way, just a few days ago supported the regime in suppressing the protesters. But also it's an additional concern for Supreme Leader Khamenei, who was already thinking about the fate of his biggest ally in the Middle East, that was Assad in Syria, who went down when the organized force confronted Assad, who was rejected by his own population and was overthrown in 11 days. And interestingly, in the case of Iran, there is an organized force on the ground. Today is the 7th day of the protests in nearly 100 cities in almost all provinces of Iran. People chanting, death to the dictator, death to Khamenei, down with the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader, making it very clear that the same way that the people of Iran overthrew the Shah's dictatorship, who was corrupt and it was a single party rule, the same way that they're fighting the Iranian regime, and they're going to bring it down the same way that the people brought down the Assad in Syria. So this is certainly another good day for the Ayatollahs. I think they get the message that the dictators and proxies who are allies of Tehran are going down one after the other.
But the president recently, on a post on Truth Social, put the Iranian leadership on notice that if they continue to kill and they are not treating their civilians appropriately, that the United States will step in. What do you think, again, this military action continues to send the message to Iran? I mean, they are clearly on notice. Do you think that there will be any change in what we're seeing in Iran right now because of what happened with the strikes?
Well, I think certainly the tweet you mentioned by the President of the United States, President Trump, was surprising for the Ayatollahs because the regime is not used to getting this kind of statements by Western leaders. In fact, the past 4 decades, there has been really a policy of appeasement of the Iranian regime, tolerating the terrorism of the Iranian regime, tolerating their nuclear weapons program, tolerating the repression of the Iranian people by the regime. I hope this is going to signal to the regime that there is a big shift globally against the dictators and against the allies of the Iran regime. It's also very encouraging for the people of Iran that they feel that the mullahs who always boasted that, oh, they're 10 feet tall, they're dominating everything, and they have this aura of invincibility, that's gone. And I think that's so important to really keep the focus on the development inside Iran. There is an organized force, a history of 40 years of fighting the mullahs. Interestingly, today when Khamenei spoke before the fall of Maduro, the regime supporters were chanting death to the United States and death to the MEK, which is the main force fighting the Ayatollahs, the same group that exposed the nuclear sites of Iran. So I think what we see in Iran is very encouraging, and it's so important for the world leaders to understand that the whole situation has shifted inside Iran towards change, towards a future that would be very different from the past history of the past, 50, 60 years ago in Iran, that is going to be for freedom, democracy, and political pluralism. There is an organized force with a platform for change that is based on separation of religion and state, equality for men and women, and freedom of religion, and a non-nuclear republic, Iran.
Alireza Jafarzadeh, great insight. Thank you for that very much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.